Hello, my name is Rachel Searle. I'm Head of Communities with Foundation Scotland, and in this presentation, I'll be considering how community benefit funds can better support local communities to respond to our global climate emergency and what may be required to assist this. Just to introduce you quickly to Foundation Scotland, since 2005, we've worked on the design and implementation of many community benefit arrangements in Scotland. We directly support over 60 of Scotland's community benefit funds provided by the owners of renewable energy projects, most of which are onshore wind. This equates to just under a quarter of annual community benefit money currently paid out in Scotland and connects us with over 300 communities and a wide range of project owners. Community benefit funds come in different sizes, values, and arrangements. Most support a range of themes and priorities determined by the benefiting communities, but historically, few have prioritised support for climate action, although they've generally reacted to it well when such a project has come along. But with Scotland now implementing a rapid acceleration of action to mitigate its contribution to global warming, maybe it's time to consider how community benefit funds can be more proactive in support of Scotland's critical target of reaching net zero emissions by 2045. But let's first acknowledge where we've come from. Over 15 years ago, when some communities were contemplating the onset of annual community benefit payments, legacy was already part of the conversation. Communities indicated they wanted the impact of the investment to leave a positive and tangible mark on the community that would lead to both improved well-being and a more sustainable community. But becoming a greener community was rarely made explicit. Nevertheless, some dedicated climate action projects did come forward. Solar panels went onto community buildings. Lots of improved insulation went into community buildings. Allotments were established and woodlands purchased and improved, and a range of active travel projects were supported. 15 years on, community benefit funds are contributing to some significant and transformative outcomes for communities and generating valuable social, cultural, environmental, economic capital. Communities with access to community benefit money own and operate more businesses than they did previously, including post offices, hotels, shops, transport, even a cinema. They deliver more services for families, for the elderly, the young, and the vulnerable. And they own more assets, including buildings and land, and sometimes even a renewable energy asset. But whilst they are well considered, valuable investments, these projects are often part of a busy landscape of competing community activity, all of which the fund is possibly trying to support, and where any focus on carbon reduction can be diluted or even sidelined. Because historically, in the discussion to set up these unique place-based funds, rarely did communities say that they wanted the legacy to be a greener and more energy-aware community with a reduced carbon footprint. In fact, the main energy-related topic of conversation was usually, and understandably, a frustration that the wind farm was not itself providing cheaper electricity to local homes and businesses. Discussions about the fund being used to tackle the impact of climate change locally were just not particularly common. There were some understandable reasons for this. Firstly, local communities often regarded the wind farm developers simply as corporations developing lucrative industrial scale projects in their community, rather than necessarily organisations driven by a commitment to make the world a better place, including the local communities where projects were sited. Communities may not have taken kindly anyway to being told how to spend money that they often regarded, rightfully or not, as theirs. Secondly, many developers were simply relieved to achieve consent and build out a project. Their focus was not on how to support, encourage, or inspire local communities to reduce their own carbon footprints. In addition, the Community Benefit Fund was a necessary, if voluntary, project cost, and which they were not going to put too many conditions around. Thirdly, there was other money around to support communities keen to reduce local carbon emissions. Between them, the Scottish Government's Climate Challenge Fund and the Lottery's Growing Community Assets Programme distributed just under 200 million for community-led climate action between 2006 and 2020, including the development of many community-owned renewable projects. One community, though, did pioneer a different green approach, though interestingly, few had followed suit in quite the same way. In 2006, the village of Fintry, north of Glasgow, became the first village in the UK to enter a joint venture agreement with a wind farm developer. As a result, Fintry owns 1/15 of Earlsbourne Wind Farm, and Fintry Development Trust was established to manage the resulting income. They made the decision to dedicate any community benefit exclusively to activity to mitigate climate change locally, reduce carbon emissions, and seek to influence energy use behaviour and attitudes. With their disposable community benefit income, the Development Trust provided a raft of projects in pursuit of this aim, including providing insulation to more than half of all households in the village, installing a biomass boiler in the local sports club, and establishing a district heating system for a site of residential park homes within the village. However, when the community had the opportunity to benefit from another wind farm fund, and due in part to the very positive impact of the Development Trust's efforts, there was appetite for the new funding to have more flexibility. Some had felt that the exclusive focus of the established community benefit on green issues was too restrictive. In the northeast of Scotland, a very different community benefit arrangement is expecting an enduring focus on climate change mitigation, in part because of the large geography the fund covers, which includes the city of Aberdeen and the surrounding authority of Aberdeenshire, collectively covering over 2,500 square miles. Vattenfall's Unlock Our Future Fund, which we administer on their behalf, provides £150,000 per year to community projects that contribute to a climate smarter world, invest in community facilities and activities that are fit for the future, are innovative in their delivery, and that ensure a legacy and lasting impact. Critically, funding bids must meet all four of these priorities. In the first 2 years, over $250,000 has been distributed for a range of projects, including low carbon heating initiatives for community centres, harnessing a range of technologies, and various greener community transport solutions. A grant of £15,000 towards Afferden District Men's Shed this year is enabling the project to optimise its renewable energy system by installing a solar thermal and battery storage as part of an effort towards an ambitious target of net zero carbon emissions for the shed, which comprises part of the site of a former high school. Vattenfall's Unlock Our Future Fund has gained much coverage and good feedback, and was last year a runner-up in the Scottish Green Energy Awards Best Engagement category. Similarly, SSE's regional Highland Sustainability Fund has been able to support some transformative low-carbon projects in communities. Whilst the fund hasn't had an exclusive focus on climate action, its size and regional scale has enabled financial support to community energy projects within communities that may not otherwise benefit from a more local community benefit fund. The regional character of these two funds have enabled sustained support towards local climate action. So how can we better promote climate action from the many funds covering smaller geographies and where, as the Fintry example demonstrates, competing interests, needs and opportunities are often more intense? Here are some suggestions. Firstly, developers and project owners can require it. Whilst in the past, you may have been reluctant to be seen to be setting the agenda for the fund, maybe now they need to change tack and set out climate change action as an expectation. This doesn't mean that a fund needs to have an exclusive focus on SDG 13, though it could. But climate action can be required as a key theme or underpinning principle which the fund needs to take on board. And from our informal discussions with residents and benefiting communities, we don't think they will challenge this. In fact, many may actively welcome it. Some developers are already moving towards this. Vattenfall recently shared this statement, but suggests they absolutely see themselves as having a role in promoting discussion with communities on the climate situation we now find ourselves in. There's almost an ethical as well as environmental imperative to raise the topic and therefore raise the game. And perhaps it makes good business sense too. So developers might also think differently about how their investment into the community is provided and where, for example, they have access to other renewable technologies. How might some of these be deployed locally as part of a community benefit package to assist the community consider options and opportunities to reduce its carbon emissions? Another route to greening community benefit funds is to encourage communities to develop or review their community action plans in the context of the climate emergency, or even look at developing their own local energy plans. There's some good learning from CARES, from the Climate Challenge Fund and the Climate Action Network about how to hold climate conversations and develop local action. Of course, not every community can step up to generate its own energy, but all communities have opportunities for carbon reducing activity, be it to do with building refurbishments, sustainable and active travel, food growing or reuse projects. The communities benefiting from the Black Craig wind farm in southwest Scotland have recently completed an area action plan which sets the long-term goal of becoming carbon neutral. Specific and substantive climate change projects are identified, including researching and promoting new modes of sustainable social transport, moving public buildings and households away from fossil fuel use, and community energy generation at scale. They've articulated this in a way, though, that doesn't mitigate other issues being addressed, but the underpinning aspiration to become a carbon neutral community is a very clear part of their vision. Another way to ensure more community benefit funds get greener quicker would be to consider how the fund itself can be used to promote more climate and energy use awareness and change across the communities they serve. The decision-making groups could incentivise climate action by providing an annual award around this theme. Another simple idea would be to require all grantees to pledge commitment to some proportionate and locally meaningful climate action proposed by the group themselves at the point of applying for the grant. If there are costs involved, these could be included as part of the grant request. So it's not about requiring all projects to fit a single climate action theme, but rather to deploy the fund in a way that encourages groups to consider their own response to the climate emergency alongside the specific project they may be seeking support for. In partnership with some of the communities we work with, we hope to develop some more thinking around this blended approach in the coming months. There will be many other ways to create movement towards greening community benefit funds, and we'd be keen to hear your ideas and learning. But the critical thing in this decade of action towards 2030 is to actually start doing it and work to ensure that community benefit funds linked to and provided by renewables projects are themselves being better harnessed to help build smarter, climate smarter communities. Thank you. And if you've got any comments or feedback, please do feel free to get in touch.